What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Eagle's Nest. Today's episode, we're going to talk about dope. Nope, not drugs. Data on previous engagement. How to true up your dope and match your Kestrel downrange. Stay tuned. You'll like this one. Here's the highlights of today's video. Building an accurate range card, truing up your Kestrel or phone app, and finding your spin drift distance. All right, folks, to go over the gear that I'm using for this, first of all, I want to say a huge shout out to Burris Optics for sending out the Burris XTR3. I just got this mounted up in zero downrange. I'll be using this for the competition dynamics hosted by Burris. So I'll be shooting for Team Burris on this match. This optic, very crystal clear. So besides that, what you see in front of you today is a 6-arc Savage 10 that I will be taking out to competition. So obviously I'm verifying my dope. It's chambered in 6-arc. I have hand loads loaded up with 109 grain burgers, and the best thing that you'll need downrange besides your targets is a chronograph. So what you see in front of you today is a Wiser precision mount on a Magneto Speed V3. Now this is a basically a mount that mounts the Magneto Speed off the barrel, and I'll be able to chronograph my my rounds without affecting the harmonics of the barrel or point of impact. So what I have downrange, I'll give you guys a look down here. I got targets set up, and we're going to be doing increments of 50 to 100 yards. So obviously the first target right there is 100 yards. The next target is a 200 yard mark and a 300 yard mark. So these are really good tools to have. However, they are electronics, and honestly, these fail. So the best tool to have doesn't beat the good old pen and paper on writing down your dope, data on previous engagement. So what I have here written down is in increments of 100 yards. Got 200, 300, 400, 600, all the way up to 1,000. And we'll be basically matching the actual dope downrange, what I have dialed up, to the Kestrel. Now, the first thing I recommend doing when doing this and verifying your dope downrange is to verify your scope tracking. Do a tall target test. There's a lot of videos out there that show you how to do this, but essentially what it does, it verifies that your scope is tracking 1 mil if you're in mil radian, or 1 MOA. So every graduation of 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to whatever it is, basically using the truth stick, like Tyrannosaurus Rex says, at exactly 100 meters. I recommend using a fish tape or basically a reel tape. So having exact measurements of 100 meters or 100 yards if you're an MOA, and setting out a stick and then verifying that every 1 mil radian lines up exactly where it is. That's going to calculate your scope correction factor. If some scopes, even high-end scopes, to be honest, have a little bit of error in correction factor. So for instance, if this scope was tracking maybe 0.2 mils low after 8 mils, then that's where the pen and paper comes in handy. So the Kestrel, a very good tool to have. I just got this 5700 Elite. It's got a lot of new features on the applied ballistic side, but basically this gets you close. Not exact, but close. So what we want to do and what we were trying to accomplish today is verify the written dope or the actual dialed dope on the scope, and we're going to graph it out and get the Kestrel kind of tuned exactly or near that graph mark. So the wind's pretty calm today. Let's take a few shots downrange. So the Magneto Speed, like I said, is one of the best upgrades that I've done. Having this mounted off the barrel, honestly, it's a very fast system to get mounted up on your rifle and get your chrono numbers while you're doing some testing. I have this mounted on an Arca rail. So the velocity that I'm getting with the 109 Burger hybrids in the 6-arc with lever evolution powder is nice. It got 2,856 average FPS. SDs are 4.4. That's a 5-shot group. I'll continue to shoot and see if those SD numbers change, or if I do get a impact that's low or high downrange on the target, the chronograph's going to tell me if that was a fluke in the ammo. So let's start off with 200 yards. So on the Kestrel, you want to get your direction of fire. So obviously you do your environmentals first and lock your environmentals. Some folks leave it live and they have it sitting out in the sun, and what it ends up doing is changing the actual temperature and causing it to basically start changing your elevation and all that. So swing it around a little bit, be careful. In my experience, when I swung this around on the older lanyard that has kind of a little like plastic piece, it delaminated and the Kestrel went straight to the ground, destroying the Kestrel. and I ended up having to get a new one. So $200 later, I got the 5700. But we did a swing test on here, got the environmentals, got the compass calibrated, switches over to lock, and like I said, there's about 0 wind, and we're going to input 200 yards, and the Kestrel is going to tell us what to hold for elevation. We'll see exactly what that does downrange. And another tool that I'm using is my target cam, so it's going to verify on the target cam exactly where it hit. Okay, so looking down the scope and optic, that was dead center. We'll write that down. I am happy with that impact. 200 yards, 0.3 mils. And then we'll go up to the 300 yard mark. And that's telling me 0.9 mil. And that was dead center. So far the Kestrel is doing good. 0.9 mils, 300 yards. No correction needed. All right, let me go ahead and set up some steel at 400 and 500 yards now. Yeah, 443. 523. 621. And that looked like an impact right edge of that target. Let's do another one just to make sure. Okay, almost dead center. So that's some good data right there. 443, good elevation, it held elevation. And that's going to be 1.9, and that is 0.2 left. So a quick little side note, at 443 yards, my spin drift came into play here. I had to hold 2/10 left, so most cartridges will have a spin drift effect around 400 to 500 yards. So verifying downrange where your spin drift comes into play is beneficial for first round impacts. Oh, that killed the target. However, I saw the impact right on the right edge of that plate. So if I was to use the other plate there, that's roughly another 2/10. So I got spin drift going on. And the Kestrel is only telling me to hold 0.1, but obviously I have the LRI unit here telling me that the canting was good. Elevation was perfect on that, so 2.6, but hold 0.4 left. So like I said, the Kestrel will get you close, but it's not 100%. So good old pen and paper. So it looks like it's going 0.2s every 100 yards. Let's throw one more downrange, 645 yard target, and we'll hold 0.5 or 0.6 left. All right, like the bottom left there. Okay, that was an impact. So I had to dial down to 3.5 mils. This thing is calculating 3.7, so 2/10 high. I held 4/10 left. All right, that is the dope right there. So 3.5 and 0.4. So you can see where the Kestrel is kind of falling apart. 600 yards, it's calculating more drop than than my actual bullet is doing. So we can play around with the ballistic coefficient. The DSF, that's another option on this Kestrel, but you don't want to play with DSF until you get to the subsonic. But what we'll do is graph basically, or collect all of our data here and try to match the Kestrel as close as possible. But you can tell 2/10 off. That's a 10-inch steel, and at 645 yards, 2/10 on elevation made me miss my target. So it's extremely crucial to get your actual dope on paper. And you know, relying on electronics, like I said, it gets you close, but results downrange what really matters. So let me set up the target at 1,000 yards. I'm actually going to skip 700. I'm going to go straight to 800 and 1,000 yards and see how this thing performs. All right, here's a 400-yard target. Here's the first impact. See a far right, then I corrected the wind value, and it's almost dead center. If I split the 1/10 of a mil, it'll probably be right here. So I'll keep it as it is. Right there is fine, but I believe that was 2/10 left with a 0 wind. All right, here's the 523. I forgot the yardage, but the target fell on the ground, obviously killed it, but impact was far right. I was holding only 2/10 left, so it needs to come up 0.4, but the elevation is spot on. Okay, so the 600-yard target, this one I kind of struggled a little bit, had about 3 shots, but it was extremely difficult to see the impacts. Basically what was happening is I was seeing dust like right like here on the bottom of it, and honestly it looked like it was shooting low, so I corrected elevation, went up another 0.3 mils or 0.2 mils, and then I saw dust all like right behind like here. So that's kind of a optical conclusion, so to say, to make up a word, but basically it's showing you like you're shooting low or you're impacting low, but in fact you're actually going over the target and it's hitting the dust way back here. So if you do get an impact that's low or appears low, you go to adjust and all of a sudden you start getting dust behind your target, try actually dialing down. Go about 2 to 3/10 low or lower on your elevation and see where your impact is. More than likely, if you calculated Kestrel, it's showing, for instance, 3.9 mils or 3.7 mils, you know, it's going to be over calculating, over compensating the drop. So go up on elevation. If not, try to go down 2/10. Work around that and you'll get your impact. All right, so I'm kind of losing daylight, so I'm just going to go straight to the last target, which is 955 yards is what the SIG Kilo picked up. But 955 yards is what it's showing, and it's telling me 7.23 elevation. So let's go up to 7.2 and see where that puts me. I'm pretty sure that's going to be low. Impact, I don't know if you guys heard that. Seemed to hit left side, the way it swung. That was the left side of plate. See if I get this camera up and going. 7.2 mils. Impact. Oh, it's hitting high. Never mind. Yep. Windage maybe slightly off, but let's come down to, let's go down to 7 mils. Let's go to 7 mils, see what that does. Impact. Just left. Elevation is good. Let's split that. So I dialed the wind this time. Let's see how the dials work. I've been basically holding the wind the whole time. Man, can't get any more centered than that. All right, so we got the windage, or we got the dope for 955 yards. That is pretty damn centered. Let's do another group here. Shot. Impact. All right. That one hit low. Did you guys see that hang fire? That was weird. Okay. All right, back to the center. So yeah, losing daylight, but essentially that is what I do for testing, verifying the dope. Obviously we got a couple yardages missing, but so 955 yards, I have to dial up 7 mils and hold a 0.5 left. So 7 mils, 0.5 left. So here's the weird part. Anything past 400 yards, I'm having to hold wind. Starting at 400 yards or 443, I'm holding 0.2, 500 yards, 0.4, 600 yards, 0.4, and then 900 yards, a 0.5. So apparently a 700, 800, and maybe 1,000, it's going to be around 0.4 or 0.5 on the wind. So this is why experienced PRS shooters say, hold left edge and send it. Typical PRS engagement distances range from 360 yards to about 800 yards typically. So holding left edge and sending it will probably get you an impact. And sometimes when the stars align and you're just on your game, you'll get a group like this.
Impact.
Yeah.
Impact.
How many shots do I have? 3? Dude, it's stacked. It's 4. Oh my gosh, dude. If I could get one more hit, it's going to be a 1-inch group. And 955 yards. That's freaking insane. Not 1,000, but 955.
Close.
Yeah.
Impact.
Oh my gosh. Look at that stack, dude.
What?
Right here.
That's
right in the middle.
That's like 20 or like, I don't even know.
I think that's right at 1 inch.
That's 5 rounds, Dad, in one like hole.
At 955.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. So now that we actually have the calculated dope or actual dope down range, we're going to compare the actual data versus Strelok and the Kestrel 5700 Elite. So both the 5700 Elite and Strelok Pro are both calculating exactly the same. So I'm just going to use the app here for demonstration. Now we do know at 200 yards, the first target we engage, it's 0.3 mils. This is exactly correct. I do have this app set up for this rifle at the same speed and everything. So it's calculated at 0.3 mils and 0 windage. So this app is pretty cool too as well, because it gives you ability to actually have multiple targets and have it a breakdown on your dope chart, and have this set up for every 50 yard increments. So the first target, 200 yards, 0.3 mils was correct. But if you see the 300 yard mark, it's telling me to hold 1 mil and 0 windage. But we do know that actual dial dope at 300 yards was actually 0.9 mils or 9/10 elevation with 0 windage. And this is kind of where it starts to fall apart from actual dial dope versus the actual calculated dope on your Kestrel or Strelok app. So we do know that 443 yard target that we engage, this one we're going to round up to 450 yards. It's telling me to hold elevation of 2.1 MRAD when the actual dial dope was 1.9. So again, 2/10 elevation off. And this time we had spin drift, though spin drift is actually enabled here on the app, as you can tell right here. Spin drift calculation on the Strelok and both the Kestrel were off as well. So 443 yards, actual dial dope was 1.9, and I was actually having to hold 2/10 left to get that center round impact. Now jumping up to 500 yards, or it was a 523, we're going to use the basically 500 yard mark. It's telling on the app 2.5 MRAD and holding 0.1 mil left. Actual dial dope for what we calculated was 2.6 MRAD and holding 4/10 left. So that's pretty close. That's 1/10 off. And let's jump up to the 640 some yard target. I forgot the actual yardage there, but let's go to 650 yards. The calculated dope on Strelok and Kestrel is saying 3.8 MRAD basically a tenth left, when the actual dial dope is 3.5 mrad and holding 4/10 left. So again, that's another 3/10 off. And the last target was 955 yards. We do know that the elevation was 7 mils on the dial dope. This one's calculating on the app in both the Kestrel at 7.2 mils and only holding 0.2 left. So dial dope 7 mrad was exactly where it needed to be, and holding 5/10 left. So the further you reach out in distance, for instance 1,000 yards, being off by 1/10 of a mil, even at 1,000 yards, is 3.6 inches. So at a 10-inch target, which will be at 1,000 yards, a 1 MOA target, 3.6 inches is damn near close to half your target being off. So it's really crucial to get your actual dope down range, and obviously temperature and elevation, all that affect, but this is why you build a dope chart for those different elevations and climates. So what I recommend to do is build a dope during the summertime on your hand loads, and also your winter time. When you got temperature swings of up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, I use those two charts to dictate exactly what I need to hold. So here's my recommendation how to set up Strelok Pro or your Kestrel. Now that you know your max applied range, for instance, for me, I don't think I'm going to go past much more than 1,000 yards. I do know it's 2/10 off on that range. So what you could do is play around with the ballistic coefficient. So at these longer distances, for instance 1,000 yards up to 1,500 yards, I recommend playing with your BC value. So both on the Kestrel and the Strelok, there's availability to change the BC value, and this one it does it automatically on a Strelok. So for instance, it's telling me 2.4. You actually input exactly what you dialed. It's going to give you your BC value and calculate it. So it'll calculate it here, 0.312. That's a G7 profile BC. If you say use this BC and recalculate, you'll see there that your MRAD now changed down to 7. So as far as the windage, there's nothing you can really do about that besides input some wind value, or like I mentioned, just hold the left edge and send it, if there's no wind. So windage there, that's all about basically you being behind the rifle and getting experience behind it. Now that we know that the elevation at 955 yards matches the actual dial dope, we can recheck again at 200 yards and see exactly what it's telling us to do. So 200 yards, 0.3 mils is correct. 300 yards, 0.9 mils, so that's correct. So we'll go up to, I believe it was 443 was the next target, and that's telling me 2 mils. So that's off by 1/10. But honestly, at those shorter distances, you have a larger target. You have more, I guess area of error that you could miss your target. So like I mentioned, at those longer distances, you have a very small margin of error. So basically, you want to be more exact at those longer distances. At these shorter distances, like I mentioned, you got more surface area or more area to miss your shot. So 1/10 a mil, you still get your impact. Now we go up to 600, and I believe I'm just going to say 650 yards, 3.7 mils, and I was 3.5, so that's 2/10. Again, 650 yards, you still have quite a bit of error, a margin that you can play around. 2/10 off should get you pretty damn close to your target. But like I mentioned, this is where having a actual dope chart from data from a previous engagement really helps out. So I'd say I cut the line off around 500 yards and go off basically what you have written down on paper. So there you guys have it. That's basically how I dial in my Kestrel 5700 Elite, as well as my my Strelok Pro app. Again, I really rely on actual dope downrange, but these apps are really good backups to have. If you have this app, or if you have the Kestrel, like I mentioned, they're good tools to have in your pocket, and it helps you get there. Well, folks, I hope this video was educational, helped you guys out. If you have any questions, comments, comment below. If you like this video, throw a thumbs up. As always, folks, stay safe out there, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. Thanks for watching.